Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Build Show. I'm John Peitzman, JP, Master Coach and creator of the Build Framework. I help individuals and teams all over the world thrive in their personal and professional lives. And as your host on this show, our aim is to help transform lives one guest at a time. And how do we do that? We do that by having amazing guests. And today is no different. We have with us Dr. Ken Druck. Recipient of the Distinguished Contribution to Psychology Award, Dr. Ken Druck has inspired individuals globally for over 45 years. Renowned for his books like The Secrets Men Keep and Healing Your Life After the Loss of a Loved One, he addresses core life issues. A pioneer in parenting, grief literacy, and family psychology, Druck is a sought-after speaker featured on major media outlets such as CNN and PBS. In his latest work, How We Go On, Self-Compassion, Courage, and Gratitude on the Path Forward, Druck explores life's what now moments, emphasizing that our response to loss or change defines our character and life's quality. Drawing from personal experiences and involvement in significant events like 9/11, Druck's Living Courageously programs offer valuable insights. We are extremely honored to have the opportunity to gain even more insights as we discuss lessons from loss through the lens of Build. And joining me all the way from Del Mar, California in the United States of America via video technology, Ken, my brother, welcome to the Build Show.
JP, it's so good to be with you. I've been waiting for this moment and so looking forward to it. And hello to everybody who's watching, all the followers, all the folks who've tuned in today.
Yeah, I have to say, thank you for this opportunity. And since we connected that first call, I mean, I called you brother for a reason, right? I feel that connection. I know you do too. And it's just an amazing journey that we're on together. And I love to dive into really your expertise. It's kind of unique, I think, today because we're able to take the expertise of loss, right, which is such a powerful thing in everyone's lives, and just having the methodologies and understandings to be able to deal with that, and at the same time using the lens of Build, right, to kind of do that and walk through things. And I think, if we dive right into it, we'll have an amazing conversation. I think that, again, we can talk all day, but we'll try to keep it concise as we can. But for those of you who, by the way, don't know what Build is yet, Build is an acronym. It stands for Build Relationships, Understand the Business, Implement Strategies, Lead and Inspire, and Deliver Excellence. And what I love about this show is that we're able to take that lens of Build and apply it depending upon what we're actually talking about and the guests that we have on and the expertise. And in this case, again, if you look at loss and you look at all the loss that you've been through, and I don't know if maybe for the benefit of our audience, maybe give a brief introduction and a little background. Obviously, I gave a brief intro there, but maybe talk about your experience with loss to kind of kick this off, and then we can kind of dive into maybe those different areas as it relates to Build.
You got it, JP. Right now, I'm just feeling the gain of having this moment to be together. And I wish I were there with you, hanging out and having some time, and or being with you and your audience in a live setting. But here we are. And so, to understand me and to know where my work comes from and what we're going to be sharing comes from. Because talking about loss, who wants to talk about loss? It's like, God, that's so depressing. It's like, oh God, loss, that's terrible. Because it ranges from the life losses, whether there are pets, our beloved four-legged children, whether it's our grandparents, who are growing older, or we anticipate, or we've already lost them. Whether it's life losses and tragedies. And in my life, they say that the worst possible loss is the loss of a child. And so when my daughter Jenna was 21 and she said, Dad, I want to go. I know the world is bigger than the US and California. I want to go on this semester at sea program. And she went off and traveled for several months until she got to India. And in India, she died in a bus accident on the Grand Trunk Road on her way to the Taj Mahal. So having suffered the worst possible loss, the loss of somebody whose life is more valuable to you than your own, is a whole nother conversation. But it's not just the life losses, it's the living losses that we suffer, because those what now moments that have to do with loss, it could be a divorce, it could be an existential moment where we're going, my God, I just turned 50 or 60 or 40 or 70 or 80, and it's like, I've lost time, I'm losing time. And eventually I'm going to have to confront the fact that, life is a least deal. So it's not just the life losses, the losses of life that we suffer, but it's the losses, it's the bad diagnoses, it's retiring and staring into the abyss, perhaps. It's changes in our relationship. It's having a child who's strung out or who's estranged. It's the loss of a dream, but it's also a what now moment of opportunity where we meet the person of our dreams, and it's that what now moment of truth in our lives that we are either compelled or asked or invited to face into, rather than to hide, deny, repress, and avoid.
Well, that's amazing.
So that's me. And, here I am 25 plus years after my daughter's death. And, sometimes you come on, you talk about horrific things that are happening, even at a time in the world where there is such turbulence, there's war. People are living in war zones, the most horrific losses. And it's not only, that somebody's died in an accident, it's not accidental, it's war. So we're living at a time where we really need to understand, we need to become a grief literate world and understand the cost of our losses, how to overcome, how to get to the other side of our losses, because there's no way over, under, around. There's only through. How do we get through our losses? And I know that's what we want to talk about today.
Absolutely. So thanks for that. And let's help share that literacy of loss through the BUILD framework. So if we look at the first category of B, which is build relationships, and you look at, again, the lessons of loss through that lens of building relationships, I guess it would be really interesting to understand, what insights you have to share for our listeners in that particular category. Because as you mentioned, loss can be about relationships, right? But it's also an opportunity, I would imagine, as you just stated, for relationships to thrive in a way that can actually bring people together. I think I've heard some stats on, death of loved ones and things can even children, right? You know much more than I, but it can bring people together or tear them apart, right? And other things like that. So what do you have to say about the category of build relationships and loss?
Well, the first thing is that we all know somebody who's having a what now moment, who has suffered a loss. We all think about it, whatever kind of a loss it is. And the question is, how do I show up? If I pride myself in being the kind of person who really meets the moment, not just for myself, but for other people. They say compassion is your pain in my heart. How do I show up for people? How do I become not the person who's gone missing in action, who retreats and withdraws, who runs from other people's losses because they don't know what to say or what to do or what's right? How do I become the person who shows up and who gets thanked down the road? Somebody says, you know what? Thank you for really hanging in there with me in my dark night of the soul moment. And the way we do that is, instead of, the old school is to figure out and fix. You got to figure the loss out and then fix that person. That's not what works. The old figure out and fix sends the message to somebody that I want you to feel different than you feel, or something's wrong with you and we need to make it right. It's that, and it's embodied in a lot of the medical model that we have. I've got to figure this out and fix. You get a diagnosis and then a cure. Well, there's no cure when we suffer the loss of somebody whose life we cherish, somebody we love, somebody we're going to miss with all our heart, who's not going to be here for the rest of our ride, and whose life has been lost to them. So what do? We learn to do something my daughter Jenna taught me when she was 3 years old, and she used to say, Daddy, be with. I go, what? She said, put the newspaper down. Don't try to fix this. This is not fixable. Just be with me. Walk with me. Stand with me. Listen to me. Show up. That's what show up means. It's us quieting our own minds and hearts to the point that we can really be with somebody in their difficult moment, in their moment of loss, no matter what that loss is. Not to judge it, not to be impatient, not to get to the point and try to fix it and show how smart we are and what a good healer we are, but to listen. The best thing we can do, to help somebody is not to talk, it's to listen and to give people the gift of feeling understood and safe and not advised or judged that they shouldn't be feeling the way they're feeling. Listen. So that's the first order of business. And I have something called the do's and don'ts of grief support that I hand out to the family members and close friends of people who've suffered a loss to give to them. And it's really a guidelines for say this, but please don't say this. Please, no spin, no spiritual, religious, or psychological spin. The glass is half full and they're in a better place and blah, blah, blah. Nobody needs that. What they need is you to be there and to be a healing presence and to trust that they will summon the strength and the faith and the courage and the patience to heal, because that's what happens organically inside of us when we're given the space to do that, when we give it to ourselves and when we give it to other people.
I love that.
So that's the first order of business.
Yes, no, that's so insightful. And I love that. Compassion is your pain in my heart. Love that. And the other key takeaway there, which is very practical, which I know the listeners will love, is just that presence is your present, basically, right? I mean, just be present, because I think you're absolutely spot on, as they say in Australia, with people not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to be. So because of that, they do the thing that they shouldn't do, which is just kind of isolate themselves and detract, or don't do anything, and they don't step up, and then they're not there, and that support then is not there. So if you're listening out there, pay attention. All you got to do is just show up, just be with, exactly, as Jenna says, right?
And no unsolicited advice. Please don't feel like you have the ability to fix somebody or to take away their pain. You're not going to be able to take their pain away any more than you can take away their love for the person they've lost. And make offerings. It's like, hey, I'd love to make you dinner, or we'd love to bring food over for a week, or, don't tell people, hey, I'd like to really be there. Let me know how I can be there for you, man. That's too general. Be specific. Hey, could I call you tomorrow? Could I take you to lunch next week? Would you walk on the beach with me? These are just offerings with no pressure, and don't expect anything back. Sometimes we get impatient. It's like, they never even sent a card, after everything we did, come on. They get a hall pass. Somebody who's going through a traumatic loss and a difficult loss gets a hall pass. They are in survival mode.
Yes.
Be compassionate, be patient. And the most important part of build, I love the build model, is the relationship with ourselves. Because the first thing, that people do, JP, when they come to see me after a loss, and I get calls from all over the world, I'm honored and privileged to get that. And people call, and the first thing they do, or they're sitting in person with me, is apologize when they start crying. And what do? I say, your apology is not accepted. You've entrusted me with your deepest, innermost feelings. I'm honored. There's never a need to apologize for breaking down. When you break down, it's actually money in the bank. It's a breakthrough. You're breaking through to what authentically and honestly you are feeling. And it's my job to make it safe for that to happen. That's what it means to meet somebody and be with somebody. But what we can do, the most important relationship in loss, is the one we have with ourselves. And what people do when they apologize for their is because their foot is up here on their throat. They're saying, oh my God, I shouldn't cry in front of somebody. I'm burdening the world. I'm pathetic. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm self-pitying, or whatever you're saying up here with your foot on your throat is not going to help you one bit. It's moving that hand down to your heart and showing yourself every element of kindness and patience and support and understanding and encouragement, because that's what's needed, not this. Mm-hmm. And how many of us are harshly self-critical? We don't even know we're doing it, but the way we talk to ourselves is so harsh and so judgmental and so disallowing. So building that relationship with ourselves means catching ourselves up here and stopping it and learning to talk to ourselves from here, saying things like, I can't imagine not feeling the way you're feeling. Of course, let's be patient. Take all the time you need to do this. Being patient, supportive, loving, accepting, understanding, encouraging. I have every confidence in you. I have every confidence in myself that I'm going to rise up out of these ashes. And I'm not only I've taken a trip to the bottom of pain, but I'm going to take what I've learned at the bottom of pain, the suffering that I've had, and I'm going to use it to build new strength, to build compassion for other people, the suffering that other people are going through. I'm not going to judge them. If I see somebody who's suffering, instead of saying, hey, what's your problem? I'm going to say, you having a hard day? I'm going to be more compassionate version of me. I'm going to become the better version of myself.
That's great, which leads to understand the business, the you in the build framework, which we just got a wealth of understanding there about the whole concept, but focused on relationships. If you look at understand the business as it relates to loss, what's the one key thing you think people need to understand about the business of loss that would be helpful for them in life?
It's a great question. I think it's important to understand that when we take a hit, we take a hit. It is what it is. It hurts as much as it hurts. It turns our world inside out and upside down. And we don't just simply jump back into the race. We don't bounce. Somebody says bounce back. We don't bounce. We go through what we go through. We go through a process of healing. After 9/11, I led some of the first workshops in New York and town hall meetings. And one of those workshops, there was a woman who came in with her husband. He was a firefighter. He and his twin brother went into the second tower together. He came out. His brother never made it out. And he had been, for 3 months, he had just been in a mode of suffering. He was still in a state of shock, but the shock was beginning to wear off. And the reality that he was never going to see his brother, that he was going to have to be with his parents and watch them grieving the loss of their other son, that this was terrible. It sucked. And it wasn't something that you could push and reverse and undo, or push the reset button and it instantly goes to something good. And no amount of positive thinking was going to do the trick. So I think understanding that people take a hit, and everybody's different. There's no cookie cutter solution for healing after a loss. But understanding that this takes as much time as it takes, and that sometimes it lasts the rest of our lives when we suffer a loss. People ask me, Ken, how are you doing? It's 27 years since Jenna died. How are you doing? And I tell them, you know what? I've learned how to walk with a limp in my heart. It doesn't get better. They said, does it get better? I say, you know what? It never gets better. It forever sucks that my daughter didn't get to live out this life. She was voted one of America's future leaders. She was a superstar. She was on MTV. She broke into MTV and to change the misogynistic languaging of music that disfavored women, and which women used to disfavor themselves. And she was a remarkable. So does it ever get better? No, it gets different. It gets different. I'm not getting triggered by every 10 seconds something happening that reminds me that my daughter died suddenly and violently. But I walk with a limp. If you look deep enough into my eyes, you see the sorrow. But you also see, not in addition to seeing my brokenness, you see my wholeness right next to my brokenness. I'm broken and I'm whole. I'm probably one of the most brokenhearted people because I love my daughter as deeply as you can love a child. But I'm also probably one of the most whole people you'll ever meet, because the part of my brokenness, the greatest part of my wholeness, is my brokenness. It's what I've done with it. It's what we do with what happens to us. It's how we summon the newfound courage and faith and strength to go on. And so understanding that, being patient, not being judgmental, really being a friend and a companion and a support to the people, to yourself and to the people have suffered losses, is the understand part.
Right.
Understand that, get it, allow that to be the way it is, and allow the healing to take place organically. It's not going to come through a book on positive thinking or my book on how we go on, even though it's wonderful. But it's going to come through that organic healing and allowing and permitting ourselves to be human.
Absolutely.
And occasionally running into a trusted confidant who sees our hand on our own heart and puts their hand on our heart too.
Beautiful. Which leads then to I implement strategies. And that could be the whole conversation, I know, because there's a wealth of strategies. And you mentioned your books. We'll talk about that at the end too, so people can dive into those and get even more information on all of this amazing insight that you have. But if you look at implement strategies, the I in the Build framework, as it relates to our conversation today, and maybe just one key strategy that might help people, move forward, what would that be?
I have something called the 8 honorings, and that's my strategic piece.
Right.
And people are welcome to, get it. They can go to my website and get it. But it's basically, these are the ways. Honor is the key. It's like, I don't get to play God. I don't get to control the universe. I need to discern which things I can control and which things I have no control over. So what can I do? I can honor. I can live on honorably. And what does that mean? Number one, it means I can survive the loss that I've suffered. Surviving it is honoring. I'm finding a way to go on and to live out the rest of whatever days I have in a noble way, in a good way. How do I do that? So the first thing is to survive. The second thing is to do something good in their name. The way you honor them is to do something good in their name. It could be as simple as lighting a candle, planting a tree. I went overboard. I started a nonprofit foundation. It could be giving somebody a scholarship. It could be anything. Honor takes all forms. It could be a prayer that you say. It could be what you learn and how you support a cause that led to their death. So the second thing is to do something good in their name. Third thing is to cultivate a spiritual relationship with them. The love that never dies is there. You can say, I say I love you to my daughter all the time. I love you. Do I understand the nature of life and death? No, with 100% certainty. We're flying through space, on a grain of sand, if that big. What do we know about this vast unknown, this mystery called life and death? But we bet our faith. And what we can choose to do is to continue to build our love. So part of what implementation is, it's continuing to love. It's saying the I love yous. It's feeling their I love yous. It's allowing love to prevail. The fourth thing is to do is really to in some way internalize their best quality. It might have been their irreverence, their sense of humor. their patience, their kindness, their generosity of heart, whatever it is, to be more that way as you grow up, to be more like they were and what they showed you while they were here and what they're still showing you. Next is to take the high road, because in grief, we are so raw. We want to bite people's noses off. We want to point out how insensitive. How could you say something so stupid? How could you be so insensitive? You know, we begin to realize that we live in a grief illiterate world. People don't know what to say or do. And yet we become impatient and judgmental about that. Instead of biting people's noses off, you take the high road. You ask them if they're having a tough day. You try to patiently explain that it's not when somebody says, "Hey, I heard about your daughter. What happened?" You know, it's like, you know what, this isn't a good time for me to talk about that. Sometimes people who go through tragedies like me, it's not really something I chat about socially, you know, and we learn to educate people from a place of understanding and patience, because they're, you know, if they went through a tragedy like you went through, they'd understand better. Next point is one of the most difficult, is to begin writing new chapters of our own life, even after they don't get to write chapters in this life in the way that we know. And we summon this newfound courage to turn the page and begin to write new chapters in our own lives, to honor them by writing new chapters, finding the courage to go on, to create new memories, to make new friends, to stop doing what we were doing that's no longer working, that we've outgrown, or that we need to leave behind, and to find the courage to let go of some things. You know, I lead a support group for partners. It's called a partner loss support group. And the most difficult thing for a lot of partners is, how do I begin to go on? It's been 2 years since my husband or my wife died. How do I go on with my life? You know, do I want to be alone, or do I at least want companionship or company from another person or people that I can get close to? But I feel like I'm betraying them. Well, how do we begin to learn to speak in a way that shows that we will be loyal forever? This part of our heart is real estate that's not negotiable. It's not for sale. It's not for sharing, but that our heart is bigger than that. There's a whole nother part of our heart that could handle loving companionship and company, and that probably wants that as part of our life. But how do we dare do that? How do we accomplish that? And that's one of the biggest challenges of suffering the loss of a partner.
And number
those
7,
are some things,
right?
And
do we have 7 and 8, right? Last two, all right.
Is joy. We need to keep ourselves in game shape to go on living. And the way we do that is to take time, shut off breaking news, unplug from screens, walk in nature, swim in nature, go on adventures, experiment with our lives, find joy in theater and music and sports and movement and meditation and learning and growing and watching shows like this. Allowing ourselves to do that replenishes the sorrow. It balances everything out, and it allows us to stay in game shape for the future, where there's going to be what started as pain and became an unspeakable sorrow seeks to become joy again. What started as joy that became pain and sorrow seeks to become. We need to stay in game shape to be there for that joy, to be there for those new chapters of life that bring wonder and new learning and joy and new people and connection and companionship and purpose and meaning, and even keener sense of what really matters into our lives.
Love that. So that's all 8, right? All the 8 steps right there. That's it. So
I nailed all 8.
Yeah, you nailed them, and that is definitely a very quantifiable strategy. So again, we'll give you the website at the end so you can go and get that written out, but take your notes right now, which leads to, of course, from I goes L, which is lead and inspire. So, we've talked a lot about leading and inspiring. You're clearly doing that on this call in this space, but how do you recommend others, especially when dealing in the loss arena of their lives, try to lead and inspire? Especially, how do you lead and inspire when everything's fallen apart, right? Maybe you tap out. I don't know. That's why it's a good conversation. But what do you have to say about the category of lead and inspire in the lessons for loss that we're talking about today?
I think we get to know the way to lead is to keep your hand on your heart and get to know yourself. Take the time you need to get to know this new normal that you're living in. To be able to know, how do I feed myself? How do I strengthen myself? How do I give myself the breaks and the time to heal? What do I surround myself with that's going to nurture and strengthen me? And what do I not do to know what people, situations, pressures are not going to help me? They're only going to hold me back and keep me down. And oftentimes, and sadly, it's people. There are people in times of loss, I call them grief groupies. Mm-hmm. They show up and they steal energy. They suck air out of the room. They suck energy out of the room and out of you. And because they're hoping that they can begin to address a grief in their own life. They may not even be conscious of what it is, but they're hoping to get close to you in your situation in hope that maybe there's a chance that it will help them heal something in their own life. And they're not conscious of it, and they don't realize that they're kind of hijacking the moment unconsciously in most cases. So I think it's important to know who do I surround myself with that feeds me strength, support, and energy, and who in my circle is sucking energy out, and to limit the time. And sometimes it's family members, to really limit the time that we spend with those people. And I think taking the lead is also speaking up when you need to. It's even if you're a shy person who's a pleaser and you usually accommodate to everybody, and you're overly patient and accommodating, to really find the voice in you that speaks up, because you're kind of in survival mode. You're in healing mode, and you need to speak up for and advocate for yourself and use your voice as an advocate. And that also involves telling people what they're doing that's not helpful. Asking permission first. I always like to ask permission, preface. I'd say, JP, can I tell you something that you did that was really helpful to me, that you said, that I've kept in my heart? It just made me feel that I'm not alone in this. I feel so understood and cared about by you. But I could also say, JP, could I, if I was really courageous, could I say something to you, that I'm hoping will strengthen our confidence? And I would want you to do the same thing with me if by accident I stepped on your toes. And to tell people, hey, it was painful for me, or it gave me the feeling that you're kind of sending this hidden message that I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't feel this way. You'd like me to feel the way you'd like me to feel, or you'd like me to do what you'd like me to do. And giving people that feedback, but prefacing it so it hits the right tone. Beating somebody up isn't going to hit the right tone. Hey, JP, do you know what you did? And putting you back on your heels, that's not going to do it.
Right.
But brother, I love you so much. And I have every confidence that our relationship can handle me telling you something. Is this a good time? And respecting you, because your head might be falling off. You might have just had something of your own going on. It might not be the right time. You might say, Ken, can we talk in the morning?
Right. Beautiful. That is definitely leading and inspiring, which leads to the final letter, which is D, deliver excellence. What does excellence even look like in this space? And what do you have to say to our listeners today about delivering excellence in Lessons for Loss?
I think delivering excellence is you, again, with your hand on your heart, accepting the truth of loss. It's like, I hate it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to experience it. Last on the list is coming to terms with the loss of our own lives. You mean this is a lease? I can't deny it anymore. I can't hide from it, run from it. I can't make up stories and pretend that I don't have fear, or I'm completely certain. So, the last chapter in my book, I'm no rushing ahead to the book, but I'm so proud of the last chapter in the How We Go On book, JP, because it's called Ken's Moonshot, Dealing with Death. It's the very thing nobody wants to talk about. How presumptuous. You wrote a chapter and you're going to help me not fear death? Yeah, I'm going to do that, because why spend the time of your life dreading, fearing, running from all the opportunities ahead? How do we deliver? For example, on that, we put our house in order so that we leave a legacy of love. We don't know how much time we're going to be here. We don't know what the plan is. We leave a legacy of love, not one of chaos. So we do the things, we deliver. By doing the things that we can, we realize what time of life it is for us, and what are the opportunities to become the better and best, stronger, more courageous, faithful version of ourselves, more loving, more caring, more compassionate, understanding, more at peace version. And we do the work. Your show, and the reason I love it and I wanted to be on your show, is because this is where you go to school. Your university, the Build University, I call it, is where you get to come and take inventory of what time is it in my life, and how can I become the better version of me, the very best version, because ultimately that's how we achieve peace. That's how we figure out what really matters, what meaning really resonates, what meaning, what contribution, what significance my life has and my time here is going to have, and what I'm going to pay forward. Because part of that is paying it forward to our kids, our grandkids, future generations, doing that seventh generation thinking that where we take into consideration with every decision we make how it's going to affect the future and future generations.
Yes. And
that's how we deliver.
And it's what excellence is all about. So thank you so much for that. We could talk all day, I know, but in wrapping up here, how can people best get a hold of you to check out your books, get the downloads, everything we talked about today? What's the best website for them to go to? And we'll put it up on the screen there for everyone to see.
Yeah. If you want to look into the How We Go On book, you just go to howwegoon.com. howwegoon.com.
Easy.
If you want to find out more about me and read my articles or see YouTubes or contact me, go to my website, www.kendruck.com. And feel free to send me an email, send my office info@kendruck.com. Send any kind of an email request, anything that I can be helpful to you, your organization, your family, your community, your country, because many people listening, I'm sure, are in the turmoil of what's happening in our world. And hopefully things get better, but things may get worse before they get better. And, we're all asking ourselves, how can I be a part of the solution rather than feed the problem? How can we leave a world safer and better, even through all the war and conflict that we're going through now? How can I contribute? How could I be a voice for that and an advocate for that and a supporter for that? So thank you, JP, for inviting me into your living room, buddy.
It's been such a privilege.
Allowing me to meet all these wonderful people. I wish I could see their faces, but I'm going to just envision that maybe I touched a heart or two with what I've shared.
I know that you did because you fully touched mine. So thank you so much. And I look forward to our continuing journey together. Thank you so much, Ken, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
And thank all of you for joining us here as well. For more great resources to help you become your best self, including free worksheets and downloads, make sure to check out thebuildframework.com. That's it for this episode. I'm JP. We'll see you next time on The Build Show.